Welcome to this week's episode, Baseball Family. This week we have regular uniforms back in the All-Star game, some front office changes across the league, and this year's playoff primer right now.
Welcome to the Baseball Together podcast with your hosts, Blackjack Brad and Briggy Blue Eyes. And now, Baseball Together.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast, Baseball Family. My name is Brad, and this week Brig is actually out. Thanks to the hurricane. He just got power back this afternoon, but still does not have interwebs. So instead, I'm joined by our guy, Jason. Thank you for joining me last minute. Jason, how are you today?
I'm doing well, and for you, those of you watching YouTube know Brig did not just become overweight and Italian.
No, he did not. But Jason,
go well.
Jason formerly was one of the hosts of our Philly Baseball Together podcast and currently is a co-host of the Not Another Sports podcast. How are things going over there for you guys these days, Jason?
Things are doing quite well. I just actually posted something today because it's International Podcast Day.
It is
one of the many holidays that are out there. Just thanking all of our listeners, all of our friends like you guys, and the teams like the Harrisburg Stampede that we formed relationships with since we started this in 2020. So things are going very well. We got some things planned for the upcoming next few months, specifically for our YouTube channel. So things are going very well with us.
Right on. Good to hear. Love to hear it. You guys have a really cool deal with the Harrisburg Stampede, by the way. Like, you guys got a good thing going there. That's awesome.
It was really cool. I mean, it's not baseball related by any means.
Right,
it's
right.
Indoor football, but we saw it in the owner's box last season, and that was really cool. You have to pay attention. We saw a lady not pay attention. A play is at the boards, and she got thrown back into her seat.
That's awesome. That's so crazy. Well, cool, man. I'm glad things are going well for you guys. I love it. Really happy for you. But before we get too far into things here, I wanted to remind everybody about Zaka Life. We have partnered with Zaka Life, CBD balm, and they have other CBD products as well. But specifically, check out this CBD balm. You can use it for your sore muscles, aching joints, and even migraines. I like to put it on the back of my neck for that. It works great, and it's marijuana free. Hit the link in the description or head to zakalife.com and use code BTPOD at checkout to save 5% on your order and support the show while you're at it. Love it.
Like good deal.
Works well. It's awesome. It's good stuff. Okay, let's get into this, Jason. First things first, Major League Baseball today announced they're going back to the team uniforms at the All-Star game. Everybody's going to be wearing their primary home or road uniforms as opposed to a standard issue jersey. This is how things were at the All-Star game for the 1930s until 2019. I believe that was the last year they did it. Then no All-Star game in 2020, and then 2021 they decided to change it up.
Yes.
And they're even going to wear their primary home uniform during the home run derby, which my thing is like, doesn't that feel like the time to sell an alternate jersey?
I mean, this is, first off, as a card-carrying Uniwatch member, I love going back to this because it's tradition. And as much as we want to change things with baseball, certain traditions hold value to the fan base. And the wearing the home and road team jerseys has been something the fans never liked from the get-go as far as I've seen online. And that's where I really see interactions. Yeah. I'm impressed that MLB took this stance because they have a very lucrative deal with Nike, and Nike's all about as many jerseys as possible mainly for collectors. Let's be honest. That's what it's for. So I think this is more, I think, fan service than anything. I think they've heard the rumblings and they're acknowledging it.
Right, and that's not something that usually happens either. Is that MLB doesn't really seem like it cares what the fans say or want or anything like that, right? So, like, I think it's cool. Like, for one, I liked the alternate uniforms, like the alternate jerseys in the All-Star game, just because it makes it different. Right, makes it more adds to the pageantry, adds a little bit more of a special event to it. But at the same time, I have no problem with doing this because it is tradition. It's the way it's been done forever.
Right. It's not like It's not like the NHL or the NBA where they've always had special uniforms for all-star games. Baseball's always, since the 30s, worn their team uniforms representing their team in the all-star game. And it's a great visual on the field because it puts fans visually, oh yeah, that's a Tigers jersey, or oh yeah, that's a Rays jersey. So it gives name value to the teams more than these prior years have. Now, I will say I didn't mind this year's jerseys. The electric blue with the charcoal was a really nice color. The salmon and nude, not so much. That was a
little much. Yeah. Yeah. And my thing with baseball is that, like, when it comes down to it, everybody could just wear their home whites. It doesn't, like, colors are so far less important in baseball than they are in any other sport that it really doesn't matter what you wear. Like, we all grew up forever. Everybody, first day of the season, okay, everybody's going to get gray pants, and then we all got a different colored shirt. Well, this team is the Rangers, this team is the Red Sox. They're going to show up both wearing red shirts, but it doesn't matter because the defense and offense are separated in a way that the colors are not that important. So,
I agree.
Like, it's not like in the NFL where you have to have separate colors because everybody's got so many different colors, right? Or even basketball where you have to be more uniform with the separate colors because you easily pass the ball to the wrong guy, right? So,
exactly.
I don't know. It doesn't affect me either way. I hope they do have an alternate option to purchase because that would make me more likely to, like, buy like a Harper jersey or an Ohtani jersey or something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a batting practice uniform that would be on sale or that they would wear specifically to sell. Yeah.
Yep. And I think you're right. I think they'll stick with that. But one thing you said, like, at the very beginning, this is my last thing on this, I do think is interesting is, like you said, that Nike likes to have as many options as possible for people. But the fact that Nike was the one that came out at the beginning of this season or last season, it was like 4, you only get 4. Get 4 uniform combinations. Like, why?
And
you're taking money out of your own pocket. Why would you do this?
They're axing some really great alternate uniforms for some questionable city connects.
I know. Boston, for one, we're going to get into that later on another episode. But, man, I don't understand it, Boston. But do you, whatever. Okay. Let's talk about Tarik Skubal because the dude was lights out all year long. And to the tune of winning a Triple Crown, an American League pitching Triple Crown. This is wins, ERA, and strikeouts. He had the most wins with 18. His ERA was 2.39 and 228 strikeouts. Second place, guys, you've got in wins, you had 3 tied to 16, Barrios, Lugo, and Rodon. Like I said, they all had 16. ERA had Ronel Blanco with a 2.80 ERA, and then K's had Cole Reagans with 223. So it's almost like wasn't super close.
No.
Like, Reagans, if he had gone off in his last outing, may have gotten there, but probably not. Right?
Right.
And so I think my big question with this is sometimes you see, and I don't want to say, like, sometimes you guys win the Triple Crown because you never see anybody win the Triple Crown. But sometimes you see guys go off and have a year like this, but that's it. Right? Do you think Skubal is here to stay? Is he legit, or is this a one-year wonder for him, where he just, like, lights out for a year and then he's going to come crashing back down to earth next year, and we're just going to kind of be like, there's Skubal?
So looking at his stats from 2020 to now, every year he has improved. Every year his win percentage has gotten better. His ERA has gotten better. I mean, just from 2022 to now, his ERA went from a 3.52 to a 2.80 to this year it's a 2.39. He's trending in a way that every year he's improving as he's playing. So I'm more inclined to say that maybe the Triple Crown is a one-year wonder, but I think he's legitimate in his abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be this dominant every year, but he's going to be an ace for the Tigers for a long time. I think that's part of the reason the Tigers were okay with trading away Jack Flaherty, and also because they were out of it, right? At the trade deadline.
Well, I guess we'll get to that later.
That's like the weirdest thing ever. But yeah, we'll get to that later. It's like, we can get rid of Flaherty. We're not going Oh, well, hold on. Wait a minute. What's happening? But no, I think it's great. Good for him. He was in the WAC when I was in college. I went to a WAC school as well. And so I went back and looked at box scores like, did I ever get to see him pitch? Because I covered our school's baseball team. We played, and since we were in conference, played him like 6 to 9 times, something like that year. Yeah. I never got to see Skubal pitch in college.
Oh.
I was at the stadium with him a few times. Obviously never talked to him, but we were there together at the same time. But I never saw him pitch. So I was kind of bummed about that. Like, that would have been really cool to be like, yeah,
that would have
unknowingly saw Skubal pitch in college, but I didn't get to. So, but good for him. Congratulations. I couldn't be happier for him because I love it when guys on I don't want to say non-traditional because Tiger's been around forever, but non-traditional powerhouses do well like this.
Right.
Like
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like Seth Lugo, I was stoked for that guy all year long because I was like, I really wanted him to win the Cy Young, I think, because he was my pick, but I couldn't be happier for Skubal. Okay, there are a couple of changes coming up in front offices across the league, specifically in the National League. So this was really interesting to me, Jason. The St. Louis Cardinals president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak, I don't think I'm saying that right, but that's how I'm going to say it. He said the Olimar Mall. Okay. He said Olimar Mall will be back. Okay. First off, that was surprising to me. And I think a lot of people. But they said the Cardinals are planning on taking a different direction, taking a directional shift, was the phrasing that they used, putting a heavy emphasis back on scouting and player development. Mozeliak said, it's obviously going to be a shift in philosophy. Instead of looking for short-term answers, we're going to try to take more of a long view. So for those of you who don't know, this means they're going to work on overhauling their minor league system because they've been ranked at the bottom third of all of the entire system in the last 2 years because they've gone away from that and taken the approach of signing big name free agents who have mostly, honestly, been pretty near washed up.
Right.
I don't want to say Nolan Arenado was washed up when he got to St. Louis, but things have not gone well the last few years.
I would concur.
Which is fine. Right? Because he's getting up there. So, whoa,
he
I
did
just
not
got a text
last
from
long
Brig.
on my fantasy team.
I just got a text from Brig. He said that Pete Rose just died.
What?
Holy cow. I got to see if that refreshes on my news on my app.
Yeah.
Holy cow. This is... I got to check this.
Yeah.
It's died at age 83. Whoa. Holy cow. We are going to have to address that on Thursday, I think. Breaking news when you get this tomorrow. But holy cow.
That is
real
crazy.
Quick, Jason, as a Phillies fan, what does Pete Rose mean to you, or is it almost like secondary?
So with Pete, and obviously with Pete, there's the good and there's a lot of bad, there's some good. Without Pete being on part of that 79 to 83 team, because that was the time he was with him, I don't think Mike Schmidt comes into his own the way he did without Pete Rose being there to push him. And Schmidt credits Pete with being the person to kind of force him to push even harder than he was. Pete was in a lot of ways the final piece of the puzzle for the Phils to get over that hump, because the Phils were very dominant in the mid to late 70s as far as an NL East team. They were a powerhouse, but they just could never get it done in the playoffs to make it to that next level of the World Series. So the fact that they had someone with the experience and the knowledge of Pete, and he was able to really push their star player in Schmidt, I mean, that season doesn't happen without Pete Rose. Unfortunately, in the last few years, he's made appearances at Phil's games and has burnt some bridges on live TV during that. You don't make fun of John Kruk's cancer diagnosis from the 90s and come away scot-free. So Pete was kind of a non-entity in the last few years because of that. But you don't have the 80 season without Pete Rose.
Yeah, I think, that makes sense. I I've never. I mean, I think most of us just consider Pete Rose a Cincinnati Red. You know,
right?
That the time in Philly was just kind of an afterthought, but like you said, it worked out. It went well. Kind of went well for everybody. So
I think the real afterthought was his time in the Expos.
Yep. That's the one. That's the one. Sorry. Okay, let's get back to the Cardinals. So where were we? We were talking about how they've gone.
They were changing their system,
changing their philosophy from
signing
big name free agents, talking about Nolan Arenado out of his prime by the time, or not necessarily by the time he got there, but shortly after he got there. Kind of like the Albert Pujols to Anaheim thing, just the opposite direction. But I thought the most shocking thing about this whole thing was that Oli Marmol, who's been with the Cardinals since 2022, has managed the team to a 274 and 239 record. Okay, so 8 games over 500. Most of that success came in 2022 when they were 93 and 69. Right, so you finished, what is that, 24 games over 500? Yeah, that's going to help. That's going to help your overall record. So,
my thought on this is maybe they're keeping Marmol around for another season to see what happens with him and their focus on primarily younger, less expensive players. Is he someone that can mold these young players into being something? Or was it just happenstance that he had that really good year in 2022?
Yeah, that could be. And it could just be like a transition year too. Because today, actually, they came out, like, putting all this together. Then I saw this other story come out today where Chaim Bloom is actually going to be replacing Mozeliak after the 2025 season. So the president of baseball operations is a lame duck for this entire year. Or maybe he's transitioning. I don't know. But they're going to bring in Chaim Bloom to replace him, or as Briggs says, Chaim Bloom.
It's Chaim.
As I said, didn't I say Chaim Bloom?
You said
Briggs
Chaim.
Says Chaim.
You said it right.
Okay. Yeah, Briggs says Chaim.
He also says Kybert too. So
right. And Pasan.
I think Kybert every time I see the player too. That's the worst part.
I know.
But it could be that, Marmol is also, a lame duck manager until Bloom takes over and hires whomever he wants.
Right, because obviously he's going to. But
I mean, we could see Showalter back.
You know who could end up in St. Louis? Skip Schumacher.
That's true.
Maybe he takes a year off and then ends up in St. Louis with Chaim Bloom. I don't know. Just a thought. Just a thought I had. So another front office change is the Giants actually fired Farhan Zaidi, which surprised me. I shouldn't have been super surprised, though, given the fact that they had grossly underachieved this year with the roster that they had, and did absolutely nothing. But the thing that really surprised me was that now they have Buster Posey coming in as a president of baseball operations. What?
That's a surprising move. Not because he's a Giants legend. It's a surprising move because typically these guys don't start out as president of baseball operations at the major league level. It's typically something you work your way towards. So it's interesting seeing him put in that slot. And I mean, this could go very well, or this could go very bad.
Yeah. So he's been around the Giants. But I haven't been able to see anything about what he was doing while he was around as a retired former player. So I don't know I'm sure that he was working as like some kind of, I don't want to say like a consultant, but he was working with player development in some way, right?
And that's something I always think about, because there's a lot of former Phils who were on very big Phils teams who are consultants for the team. And what exactly do they actually do? Not being rude, but is it just
right? No.
or are they showing up to the front office every day and Are they in the trenches?
Right. So this article on ESPN says that he's taken an increasingly large front office role in recent years.
Okay.
We don't really know what that means, though. Is it just him being around? Like Ichiro, his role with the Mariners is like put on a uniform and go shag balls with the guys. Just be around. Just be around them and talk to them, right? And just really a mentor is basically what he's doing, but everybody loves it. The fans love seeing Ichiro around. The players love having Ichiro around because he's freaking hilarious. And it's just it's so good for the morale of the clubhouse, the entire team. Ken Griffey Jr. has been around, but he's also a very small minority owner. Dan Wilson has been around for a long time, working in player developments, mostly with the catchers, and now he's the manager. Right, so they've had a lot of former players around, and I'm curious. This is Seattle, and I'm curious if those roles are going to tick up now that you've got a former Mariner in the manager's office. And so I'm curious what Buster Posey is going to do as a president of baseball operations if he's going to bring in guys from those World Series runs and be like, hey, come in and mentor these young guys. Teach them what it takes to win. Teach them what it takes to be professionals, like just to take things to the next level. So I don't know. It's
that's entirely possible. I kind of want to see how this plays out before I cast any true judgment. So maybe I'm a bit indifferent to it at the moment. But yeah, I mean, maybe by getting some of those guys in who were important to those World Series teams to come in and like you said, and mentor or just be around and offer advice and mentor, that'd be great. Bring Tim Lincecum home. I mean, he was an amazing pitcher at one point. You don't think he has advice to give?
I think that would be amazing. Bring in Tim Lincecum and let him mentor some of those guys, especially as somebody who was counted out, discounted, and kind of cast aside until the Giants picked him up because everybody's like, he's got good stuff, but he's really, really small. And the Giants are like, we'll take a waiver on him, right? So, I don't know.
He lost something.
It's going to be interesting. He did. Yeah. And I wonder if the herb – if it was an absence of or a presence of that changed things. I don't know. But either way. Anyway, all right, let's talk about Anthony Rizzo. This is the last thing. We'll take a quick break. So Anthony Rizzo apparently fractured fingers on his hand. Obviously, that's where your fingers are. So I should say he just fractured fingers when he was hit by a pitch. He's hitting the right hand, has fractures on his fourth and fifth fingers, ring finger, and pinky finger. And the Yankees say his status for the playoffs is unclear. If he can't go, Ben Rice will likely take his spot on the roster. Aaron Boone, I thought, had an interesting thing. He just said at this point, it's basically just pain tolerance. It's like, so what are you calling out on Anthony Rizzo if he can't go? Non-tough guy?
I mean, that's an odd statement. Boone's kind of an odd man to begin with. I mean,
he's a little bit of an odd. I like it. I love the quirkiness that comes with Aaron Boone, especially when he gets fired up and animated and he's yelling at an umpire. Those are some of the best videos around, right?
I love when he gets tossed for not yelling at the umpire.
Yes, even better. So good. But I want to know though, does the presence of Anthony Rizzo, the lack of Anthony Rizzo in the lineup, do you think that changes anything for the Yankees?
I mean, you're losing a guy with a wealth of experience in the game, former World Series champion. But at the same time, I mean, as long as your other big names are there and delivering, do you really even notice he's gone?
Right. That's kind of
I feel like there's a former host of the Chicago North podcast who would kill me right now for saying that.
I think you're right. But at the same time, though, you got to consider this though. Rizzo played in 92 games this year was all.
Yeah. So you didn't have him for an entire season to begin with. This isn't like it's entirely new.
Yeah, you had him for 2/3 of the season, and was it? And granted, the part that they didn't have him didn't go well. but also you had a ton of guys slumping. There were a lot of defensive lapses during that time, and it just all around wasn't really going well. And I don't think it was because Rizzo wasn't there.
Right.
I think this team has its warts, and they're going to be what they're going to be, no matter whether Rizzo is in that lineup or not. And so, honestly, I don't think it matters a whole lot if you have Rizzo or Ben Rice in that slot.
No, I concur.
Like, maybe Rizzo would come in during an 8th inning at bat when you need him, that Ben Rice isn't going to. So maybe there's like literally a 1-win difference between the two, and that win could be the difference between going home and advancing. I don't know. But ultimately, Rizzo has not been Rizzo, and I don't think that his absence is going to be make too big of a difference, if that makes sense.
No, that's exactly what I think about the situation. And you don't know this is going to test Rice's mettle. I mean, he could come out and absolutely shine for all you know under the pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a first few days at the big league level, and then I think teams kind of got a book on him and knew how to pitch him. But if he can adjust, I think he'll be just fine. He's a good player. He's got a lot of potential. So yeah, it could go really well for him. Okay, before we take a quick break, we're going to get into Today in Baseball History. Today in Baseball History, October 1st, 1932. As legend has it, Babe Ruth called his home run against Chicago's Charlie Root in the 5th inning of Game 3 of the World Series at Wrigley Field. The Yankees won the game 7-5, and Ruth and Gehrig each hit 2 homers in the game. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get right back, we're going to get into this year's playoff primer to get you ready for postseason baseball.
Baseball family, some of the hardest parts about eating sunflower seeds, outside of choosing which flavor you prefer, is keeping track of the packaging and trying not to spill your seeds all over the place. Well, now those days are over with Seed Sack. You can get a seed sack in canvas or leather with a metal squeeze clasp. It keeps your seeds nice and protected. Seed Sack also lets you personalize your sack with names, numbers, and logos. They're great for team gifts, birthdays, or just for whenever. Head over to seed-sack.com and use code BASEBALLTOGETHER. That's baseball with the number 2 together, and save 5% on your seed sack. Again, that's baseball, the number 2 together, for 5% off your seed sack order.
Welcome back, baseball family. So today we're going to get into our playoff primer, but before we do that, we want to remind you about Chinook seeds. One thing we like to ask our guests about is their favorite sunflower seed flavor. Well, we have some favorites around here. I lately am a huge fan of cinnamon toast. Brig is all about Parmesan and pepper. What's yours, Jason?
It is the jalapeno ranch.
Oh, and it is money. It is so good. I don't like ranch, but I love jalapeno ranch. So these are our favorite seed flavors from Chinook Seedery. Because we love them so much, we reached out and partnered with Chinook Seedery so you can get the best seeds at a discounted price. In addition to our favorite flavors, you can also try Chinook Seedery Original, Smokehouse Barbecue, Lemon Pepper, which is also quite tasty, Hatch Chili, and Dill Pickle. Go to ChinookSeedery.com and use code BTPOD at checkout to get 10% off your order. Support the show and support your mouth. Again, that's ChinookSeedery.com and code BTPOD for 10% off your order. All right, Jason, it's time for postseason baseball. So let's get into the playoff primer.
Playoff primer.
So we have to let the audience know every year where that comes from. Because our very first postseason, we're getting ready to go into the playoffs. So I was like, all right, let's do a playoff primer. And so I teased it going into the break. And while we were in our break, we did things very different then. That was like, that's Brig. That was what Brig did. There was no editing to Brig's voice there. It's just how it came out. I clipped it. I put it over angelic music with a graphic. And there we have our playoff primer graphic that we've been using every year since then. It's very fun because he doesn't love the reminder that was something he did once upon a time. So anyway,
I'm here for it and I love it.
I love it too. I throw it on every once in a while in between segments or before we go, just to just to lighten the mood a little bit if it needs it. But anyway, okay, so your playoffs are finally set after a doubleheader today between the Braves and the Mets. Spoilers, they split. The Braves and Mets are in. The Diamondbacks are out. So this is what your playoff picture looks like. Official, Jason. Okay, so your bye teams you've got in the American League. Jason, in case you haven't noticed or you've forgotten, we're pretty much an American League show because of our teams. So we always start with the American League all the time. And we always start east and work our way west because East Coast bias is a real thing, even though I'm on the West Coast. So anyway, your postseason picture, your top two seeds in the American League, you got the Yankees and Cleveland's Baseball Club, respectively 1-2. They will have byes in the first round. And then your third seed, you've got the Houston Astros. Fourth is the Baltimore Orioles. Fifth is the Kansas City Royals. And sixth, by some baseball miracle, is the Detroit Tigers. So in the first round of the wild card, you're going to have the Houston Astros playing the Detroit Tigers, and then the Baltimore Orioles playing the Kansas City Royals. On the National League side, you've got the LA Dodgers as your 1 seed. Your 2 seed, Jason, your Philadelphia Phillies. Fighting Phil's Red October. I am so jealous about that towel. I love it. Your 3rd seed is the Milwaukee Brewers. 4th is the San Diego Padres. 5th, the Atlanta Braves. And 6th, you have the New York Mets. So that means the Padres and Braves will be playing, and the Brewers and the Mets will be playing. Okay, so we're going to get into things, throw some numbers at you, break down each team, and at the end, we're going to share some of our predictions. See if we can make some guesses to see how things are going to go this postseason. So I'm going to be fascinated how your predictions go, Jason, because you're a big Phillies fan. I'm curious if you could ever pick against them. I doubt it, but we'll see. I think in August you probably could have, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. My wife, Jamie, makes fun of me all the time because I'll get so disgusted watching a game, like seeing them go down by like 6 in the first inning, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm walking away. And she's like, why? I'm like, I'm conditioned to be this way. That's why.
Oh, do you come back like 3 innings later just to see what's going on?
Yeah.
Always, yeah. That's the life of a baseball fan. I can't remember if I talked about this the other day with Brig on the live or not, but Mike Salk, he does Seattle Sports Radio. He's like, the thing about baseball is that baseball season is torture. It is so tense. The NFL, you get a week off between games to decompress and relax and get over a loss. You get almost an entire week off every single time. Basketball, you're going to get a couple back-to-backs, but you're going to get a day off. Baseball is every single day for 162 games. And any pitch can change the course of a single game. He's like, they show the crowd in baseball more than they show it in any other sport because everybody's like this. Everybody's biting their fingernails, chewing on their hands because it's so stressful and tense the entire time. So we're angry for 162 games, no matter how good our team is. And then the season is over and we can either relax or we get more angry because the postseason starts.
Now starts the time of you stay in the position you sat at when the game starts.
That's right. Rally position. Let's get into rally position before we start the playoff primer, because rally position is an important thing. If your team is doing well, you are not allowed to move from the position that you're in because it could have dire consequences if you move from that spot. However, if your team is not doing well, feel free to get up and move around the room. Find a different spot until things start to go your way, and then you have found your rally position and you do not move.
I abide by this.
Those are the rules of rally position. So Brig and I talk about this all the time. We've talked about it a few times on the show, and 2 years ago when the Mariners and Astros were playing, they played an 18-inning marathon that ended by a score of 1-0. I did not move. Jason legitimately did not move from my spot on the couch for 17 innings. I parked myself. I didn't even get up and get a drink. I have, at the time, an 8-year-old who was like, hey, can you go grab me a drink from the fridge? He's like, yeah, go get it a couple times from the game. And then finally, the 18th inning rolls around, and I'm like, okay, We're at a stalemate. It's time to move. It's time to shake things up. I literally, Jason, I didn't move more than a foot. I moved to the floor in front of the spot I was sitting, and Jeremy Pena went yard, like 2 pitches.
I remember this in our group chat, actually.
Yeah, like it is absolutely a real thing. It's my fault the Mariners got eliminated that day. Absolutely my fault because I didn't hold the position.
I believe that's actually what you typed in all caps was it's my fault.
I think I did. It's all my fault. So hold the position when your team's doing well because rally position exists. It's only weird if it doesn't work. Okay, here we go. Let's get into the playoff teams. So like I said, we're going to start with the American League. We're going to start with the Yankees. The Yankees ended the season with a 94-68 record, 44-37 at home, 50-31 on the road. I love this record right here. I love this as a way to see how good teams really are versus teams with a record over 500. They're 55-38. And then we're going to break things down a lot by second half. Their second half record is 36-28. Okay. Not quite the world beaters they were in the first half. However, they do have a run differential of 147. They're going to put them up. Yes. They're going to put them up. So, and since they have a first round bye, they're either going to end up playing Kansas City, who they're 5-2 against this year, or Baltimore, who they are 5-8 against this year. They finished the season, their last 10, 5-5. But these teams that clinched early, I don't think you can really look at that number a whole lot because they've got a hangover game and they're not going to play their stars as much. So,
yeah.
But this is some really interesting stuff. Their offensive stats since the All-Star break. So just a couple things I want to look at here. They do hit a whole bunch of home runs. They continue to, even when they're not playing well, they continue to hit a whole bunch of home runs. 97 homers just in the second half alone, Jason. And a team WRC plus, for those of you who don't know, it's weighted runs scored plus. The average is 100. That's the league average always. So that means they're 19% better than the league average at 119. And they stole 50 bags. Pretty average. We're going to find out as we go through this. Offense is going to roll. That's just who the Yankees are. That's how they're built. They've got Aaron Judge, John Carlos Stanton, Juan Soto. That's their three-headed monster. Well, one of those heads is not nearly as strong as the others, but as far as quality of hitter. But this is the problem. This is where the problems came for the Yankees right here, is their pitching. Team ERA of 4.06. That's in the second half. Didn't see that coming. That number shocked me.
Yeah.
And then also they had 18 saves as a pitching staff, as the bullpen had 18 saves and 9 blown saves in the second half of the season. So this is the thing that I found, and Briggs been saying this with the Yankees, is starting pitching is mostly good most of the time, but the bullpen is the problem. Clay Holmes was moved off the closer role, and because he's certainly been gettable. But I think the Yankees pitching is gettable. You're going to have to go out there and score a whole bunch of runs to keep up with them, though.
That's the thing. I think because their offense is so strong that they can have a mediocre bullpen and they'll still be involved and they could potentially win every game that they play because of their offense. You have to outscore them in order to win. You're not beating them at the plate.
Right. You're not going to hold them back. So I think that the matchups are going to be really interesting depending on who they get. Okay, let's move on to Cleveland's baseball club, the Guardians, if you will. So they finished the year with a 92-69 record. Yes, that is only 161 games because game 162 got canceled because it was moot, not needed. Get ready for this, Jason. Home record 50-30, road 42-39. The Cleveland Jet stream, I believe, is a real thing. It has to be. That has to be the explanation for that, right? 20 games over 500 at home, 3 games over 500 on the road.
Here's my take on it. I think Cleveland is a very good team and kind of flew under the radar for most of the season by a lot of talking heads in bigger
Cleveland
scenarios.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. There are a lot of things they do really well. Their pitching, like we're going to get into their pitching numbers here in a little bit because it was not as good in the second half. It's pretty much lights out to start the season. It wasn't as good because they dealt with some injuries and stuff second half. But also their offense, though, was not very good second half. So they had a team batting average of 230, hit 76 home runs, which, last year that was their big thing, was that there was like no slug, right? 381 slugging the second half of this season, and a 676 OPS. That's not good as a team. And this is the most telling number, though, is the team WRC plus was 93. I think that's the worst out of everybody in the playoffs. I think they're the only ones under 100 in the second half. Like, nope, the Astros. Nope, that's the wrong number. The Astros were at 111. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're the only team with a WRC plus under 100.
Tigers are at 95.
Royals are at 95 too. Yeah. But other than that, the Brewers are dead even at 100. Offensively average. So, yeah, so that's crazy, though.
It is. It's very crazy.
An absolutely bonkers thing. That, because the first half they were so great, and everybody was talking about the jet stream thing, right? So that was a whole big thing. But anyway, I lost my spot here. Here we go. I'm back. Maybe. There it is. Okay. And they don't steal a lot of bases. I mean, I guess kind of. They've got 69 stolen bases. A lot of those, though, I feel like are Jose Ramirez, because he ended the season with 40 bags. So
he was a beast.
I don't think of him as a guy stealing bases, but I guess that's what he does.
That's why it works.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, kind of like Cal Raleigh had like 5 bags this year or something like that. The Mariners catcher. You don't expect him. It's like, Cal's on the move. But anyway, so they had a team ERA in the second half of 3.45. 19 saves, 4 blown saves. That's pretty dang good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I don't know. Of all the teams, I do feel like Cleveland is one of the most unknowns, and I probably, because I've been saying that all year, I just keep expecting them to fall off, but they never really did. Right?
Yeah, I think they're the sleeper team.
They could be. Yeah. Yeah. They could be the world. They could be the dark horse this year, even though they're a second seed. So I don't know. Anyway. All right. Let's move on to the number 3 seed. The Houston Astros finished the season. Okay. And we're going to talk more about matchups here as we go through these as well. So the Houston Astros finished the season with an 88-73 record. They also didn't play 162 because they were supposed to play against the Guardians, and that game got canceled. Home record of 46-35, a road record of 42-33, pretty even. But this is the one that I think is interesting, is the record versus teams with a record against teams over 500, 41-43. I think a big chunk of that was early in the season when they were struggling, but they also lost a series at the end of the season to the Mariners, despite having clinched the division during that series.
Right.
Because they only needed to win one game to win the division. So, I don't know. I feel like the Astros are somewhat of an unknown as well. They've got all that experience. You expect them to be very, very good. But at the same time, though, like, they've shown us that they can go through really bad stretches.
They underachieved for quite a bit this season, and it reflects in their record. It reflects in how they got in this year. I mean, they were so bad, I don't think anyone expected them to make the playoffs at one point.
No.
I believe I read that quite a few places. So the fact that they're here is a bit of a surprise, just based on how their season was at one point.
So one thing that's crazy is a lot of Mariners fans are looking at this and like looking at the Astros 88-73 record, and they're like, the Mariners went on a 1-8 road trip at one point where they got swept by the Tigers, lost 2 out of 3, I think, to the Royals, and then got swept by the Dodgers, I believe is how that went. It's like, you go 3-6 on that road trip, there's a good chance you end up winning the division at the end of the year.
Yeah, a very good chance.
You're a couple games out still, but because you can get a couple more bounces going and some momentum, like there's a chance you win the division against the Astros. And so there was one specific game where the Mariners blew an early 7-0 lead to lose 10-9 to the Royals, and that ended up being the difference in making the wild card. Because they didn't have the tiebreaker against the Royals because of that, and then they finished a game back of them. It's crazy, man. And that was in like July.
That is the heartbreak of baseball.
It really is. That's the thing, is everybody's like, oh, it's 162 games, but it can still come down to one crappy game in July.
And that's why every game matters.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly right. So this is your Astros team, and by yours, I mean whoever's listening. This is not my Astros team by any stretch of the imagination, or yours, Jason. I know that.
No.
Offensively, they hit 261 as a team in the second half. They had an OPS of 741, pretty good. 80 homers, a WRC plus of 111. They don't strike out. 20.6 K rate and a 7.4% walk rate. They don't steal bases either. They only stole 29 bags in the second half. This is the thing that the Astros do, Jason, is they're efficient. They don't get on base a whole lot. Like, it blows my mind how few base runners the Astros have, but when they get on, they score. And it seems like every single time.
And it's frustrating to watch.
It is so frustrating to watch. I have never ever in my life watched a team where a guy gets a single. It's like, crap, he's going to score. He's coming around. Every single time I watch the Astros. It's absolutely bizarre. So they're super duper efficient offensively, and it's frightening how efficient they are. So pitching, though, like, it's a pretty dang good pitching. Team ERA of 3.34 in the second half. Let's see what else is important here. 20 saves and 12 blown saves. So Josh Hader had an interesting year as their closer. He went through stretches where it's like that dude could not get a save to save his life. Right. And Ryan Presley really struggled for a while too. It was like, what's up with this two-headed monster? The 8th and 9th inning combo of Presley and Hader, like, not doing anything. And then they go on another stretch where they're unbeatable. You get to the Astros get to the 8th inning with a lead and it's locked down. And so I think part of what's going to happen here for them is it's going to depend on how Hader and Presley do in this postseason. We've seen Presley have really good postseasons, and we've seen him struggle in postseasons. Mostly have really good ones. But I think that's going to come down to it, is because the rest of that bullpen, though, is not great.
Right.
So
their pitching does scare me, though. Their starting
pitchers are great. Starting pitching is money. They're going to have to go deep in games, though.
Yes.
That's what it's going to come down to, is because their middle relievers have not been good, and if they give up a lead and you don't have Presley and Hader coming in, then you're toast. So, while we're talking about the Astros, let's jump down to the Tigers, Jason. We can look at this matchup directly. So the Tigers finished the year 86-76. They are tied with the Royals for the worst record in the playoffs, by the way. Had a home record of 43-38, a road record of 43-38. Their record against teams over 500, 47-50. They were 39-26 in the second half. One of the best teams in the second half. They were, like we said, they were all but dead in the water in the middle of August, and then they went on absolute tear, became the best team in baseball for 6 weeks, and made the playoffs. So their run differential is plus 40. That's the lowest of all playoff teams, and on the year they're 2-4 against the Astros. But they finished the season 7-3. 2 of those losses came against the White Sox. What?
Yes, during very rainy games.
Yes,
and I know this because I have a friend who lives in Michigan who's a very big Tigers fan and was sending a group of us in our one group chat pictures from the game, and he's like, they just finally took the tarp off after 2 hours.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the White Sox suddenly became world beaters at the end of the season. I don't know how that happened, but I don't know. I guess motivation to not lose a whole lot more than 120.
And there is something to be said for having the momentum going into the wild card series.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, there is short series, best of 3, all in one place. So all these games are going to be played in Houston for this series, regardless of whether it goes 2 or 3. So here's some offensive numbers for the Tigers. This is just since the All-Star break again. A 234 team average. They hit 63 home runs, but they have a team WRC plus of 95. So their offense is not what's been getting it done for them early in the year, late in the year at all. It's their pitching that's been really good.
And I believe they just called up a minor league ace to be part of the roster for the playoffs.
Yeah. what was his name? Like Juba or something like that? I can't remember his name. You go ahead and look that up. I'll go through these. So they have a 3.13 team ERA, allowing less than 1 home run per 9, 0.97 home runs per 9, 8.04 strikeouts per 9, 2.36 walks per 9. So they're going to strike you out, but not at too high of a clip, but they're not going to walk you, and they're not going to give up a home run. I think that's one thing that's really important is they're keeping the ball in the yard, and that's essential to playing the Astros, is keeping the ball in the yard, especially with the Crawford boxes in left field. 24 saves and only 8 blown saves. So the bullpen's been very good. The bullpen has been very, very good for the Tigers this second half. Did I get his name right? Was it Juba?
Jackson Jobe?
Job. Yeah, I knew it was Joe something. But
he was the number 6 overall prospect in Major League Baseball.
Nice. Hopefully it works out for him. And he has a good postseason.
Heck of a time to show up.
Yeah, no kidding. I hope that they don't I hope it's not like a shock to him, you know? Like, welcome to the show. Now go pitch in the playoffs. Does he have any time in the big league level yet?
I'd have to go to his baseball reference. I did not do that.
I could take a look, see. Oh, he's not showing up on there. It looks like he may not have pitched at all. Unless I'm spelling it wrong. How do you spell his last name?
Jobe. 21 years old, 2 games. 4 innings pitched in 2 games.
Whew.
So
coming out of the pen.
He's fresh.
Good luck, fella. I'm curious at what kind of situations I'll use him in, if it's going to be like low leverage when you're down, or if they're going to bring him into high leverage situations. As number 6 prospect, you never know.
Yeah.
So we'll get into predictions later, but I think this is going to be a fascinating matchup, watching a team that has just been dominating with their pitching, and then a team that is so efficient and so good offensively that it's hard to beat them. But they can be shut down.
Yes.
We've seen them get shut down. So, all right, let's go to the other matchup, the Orioles and the Royals. The Orioles finished the season with a 91-71 record, 44-37 at home, 47-34 on the road. 47-44 against teams over 500. A second half record of 33-33. It's not good.
No.
They were looking like they were the runaway favorites to win the World Series early in the year. We thought Gunnar Henderson was going to be the no-brainer MVP, and then things just fell apart in the second half. They were lucky they had such a good first half.
I mean, they're still a young team.
They are, absolutely. And that's one of the things that is, we want to say, oh, they're a young team, they'll be back. But what if they're not?
That's true.
Right?
Because I was literally going to say they could be back.
Well, so 2 years ago, the Mariners made, and I know I have to go back to the Mariners, but this is the thing, is that 2 years ago, the Mariners made the playoffs in 2022, broke the drought, everything, They shocked the Blue Jays and then went and got swept in a very competitive series against the Astros. And it was like, oh, well, we'll be back next year and we'll get them next year. It's been 2 years and they've missed the playoffs both years. So, because this is the thing about the AL East, is it is wildly competitive. First, you got the Yankees who won the division this year. Got the Rays who took a step back this year. You can't expect that to happen again next year. Everybody underperformed this year. And they loaded up at the trade deadline. They got a bunch of young guys who could come in and be studs next year. The Blue Jays, speaking of underperforming, holy moly.
Yeah.
They're probably, you would expect them to be much more competitive next year. So, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily a lock. If the Orioles played the way they did in the second half, I don't think it's necessarily a lock for them to get back to the playoffs next year.
At one point, the Yankees were the 4th place team in the AL East. I mean, let's not act like that was not a situation at one point during the season. So, right. Again, that adds to, this is a competitive division that could go any way, shape, or form throughout the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think at the beginning of the year, a lot of people had 3 or 4 teams coming out of, right? Probably 3 teams coming out of the division. Yeah, because that's the most you can have is 3. Because that's what the Central has. So I think a lot of people were choosing, like I said, Yankees, Orioles, and probably the Rays, or Blue Jays, or your third team to come out of that division.
Right.
And it just didn't work out for them that way. So I don't think it's a lock necessarily for them to get back next year. But this year they were 4-2 against the Royals. Second half, again, not great, but they still hit well. They still hit the ball really well. They had 246 team batting average, an OPS of 731. That's good. 111 WRC plus. They walk a pretty good amount, 9.1%. They also strike out a pretty good amount, 23.1%. Not going to steal. They didn't steal a whole lot of bases the second half, which shocked me. With 35 bags was all. But this is the real bugaboo, was the pitching. 4.30 ERA, 1.30 WHIP, 1.18 home runs per 9, 3.03 walks per 9 innings. A lot of teams in the playoffs are down below 3. So
they're above it.
And they're above it. 15 saves, 6 blown saves. Like, they're still good late, but they did end up DFAing Craig Kimbrell, which I think is going to help that situation a lot. So
I won't speak my thoughts on the man with the chicken stance.
We talked about him a lot last week. So but yeah, the Orioles are an interesting team because you see what their ceiling is, but now at this point we've seen their floor, which is not great.
You're right.
They could be a lot better coming into the playoffs.
I will
However,
say,
in the last, go ahead.
I was going to say, before we move on to the next team, I will say I'm very happy for that fan base that they're getting this team. Because the loyal fans that have been there through the really bad years, and there were a lot of bad years, or have deserved a team like this to show up for them.
They have, and I think that's why a lot of people have been pulling for the Orioles. Right? The fan base has gone through so much, and now you've got a new owner who wants to spend money and win, and you've got your young guys who are coming up who are so good. So good. Right?
It's almost like the Pirates should take a lesson from this.
You would think, right? Sell the team. That'd be a way to go. All right, let's move on to the Royals. The Royals finished the year 86-76, 45-36 on the road. 45-36 at home, 41-40 on the road. So that's a little concerning. 45-54 against teams over 500. Don't like that for the Royals. 34-31 second half record. They did a lot of their heavy lifting in the first half. Like, for some reason, a lot of these playoff teams.
A lot of teams
right?
have, yeah.
Yeah. So, but they finished the season 4-6 in their last 10, and they're 2-4 against Baltimore on the year. So this is the thing. This is kind of the problem that I think that the Royals have, is they hit the ball really well in the first half, and that was some carryover from last year, I feel like, because that was one of the things in their second half last year. It was like, man, this is one of the best offensive teams in baseball. Carried over, had a really strong first half, and then fell off. WRC plus, like we said, of 95, that is below league average. They weren't walking a whole lot, 7.1%. They weren't striking out a lot though, 20.4%. So I wonder, and team OPS of 707 is not bad. I wonder if some of this is just bad luck. They talk about like luck factor in baseball, right? That you hit the ball square and it's right at somebody.
It's very real. It is very real.
So I wonder if that's part of it, but I don't know. But a big thing in the postseason is your pitching. Your pitching is what carries you, and that's what's done really well for them. The second half, 3.69 team ERA, 1.20 WHIP, 0.88 home runs per 9, 8.61 strikeouts per 9, 2.78 walks per 9, and 17 saves with 11 blown saves. Here's an interesting one, Jason. This is habit. That's a habit. Interesting one for you, Jason. Is a 234 batting average against. So their pitchers allowed a 234 batting average. That's not bad.
No.
So if they can get that offense to be average in the postseason, they could be okay. They could make some noise.
Especially against their first round opponent.
Yeah, exactly. Against the Orioles. It could go well for them. I don't know. I think we got some good matchups here in the American League. I'm really excited for them. I like the way that things are stacking up. And like I said, we'll get into our predictions here in a little bit. Okay, let's move over to the National League. Dodgers. We have the Dodgers are 98-64. They were the consensus #1 team all season, it felt like, because of who they had on that team. Despite the warts, Jason. We talked about their pitching all year long. And we'll get into that in just a minute.
I have comments to make, but we'll continue.
Oh, save it for just a minute. Let me go through some stuff here real quick. Their record 98-64, home record 52-29. That's pretty dang good. 46-35 on the road, 51-41 against teams over 500. Second half record of 42-23. Even though there was a stretch where it was like, wow, they're not that great, but they're still doing really well. They're gonna either play the Padres or the Mets, Bravos. I believe. Oh, the Braves. That's right. The Padres or the Braves. In the second round, they are 5-8 against the Padres. No, you don't want to see them. And 5-2 against the Braves. I think they would much rather see the Braves than the Padres. So offense is just unreal. They're loaded, right? You're not getting through Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman. 263 team average. 800 team OPS, hit 104 home runs in the second half, stole 76 bases. I saw that. I was like, well, yeah, but how many of those Ohtani ended with what, like 57? But I was like, oh, wait, but this is just the second half. Just the second half of the season, and they stole 76 bags. 9.2% walk rate. That's pretty dang good. They strike out 21.7%, but when you're putting up those kind of numbers, who cares? Because your team WRC plus is 123. So, offensive juggernaut. They're tough to stop. A lot of teams are going to have a hard time keeping up with them and slowing them down offensively, but here's the problem. Team ERA 4.16, 1.28 whip, 1.32 home runs per 9, almost 9 strikeouts per 9, but 3.21 walks per 9. Putting a lot of guys on base, a lot of free passes, and a 242 batting average allowed. 22 saves, 12 blown saves. It's a lot of close games too, by the way.
Yeah,
in the second half. Not a lot of these teams have that many, and I was shocked how many they had. Okay, Jason, take it away with the Dodgers pitching.
It's not so much with the Dodgers pitching, because you made the comment that they were the consensus #1 for most of the season, but statistically that wasn't always true.
Right.
And I just wanted to point that out before we move on to the next team.
Right. Well, so this is the big thing, is that the pitching has always been a concern, right? Because it's like, oh, it's like they went and signed Ohtani. It's like, okay, but who's going to pitch? Walker Buehler's still out. Clayton Kershaw's out. So then they answer that by going and getting Tyler Glasnow. Okay, but Glasnow's out.
Yeah.
But then they also answered the concerns with, and they also had Yamamoto, by the way, who is back.
Yes.
But they went and got Jack Flaherty. It's like, it was such a revolving door. It's like, this guy's hurt. Well, let's just go get somebody else.
They were constantly trying to plug holes.
Yeah, exactly right. And you've only got so many fingers to plug those holes before the water starts coming through the dike. So I think that possibly could end up catching them, especially if they end up seeing the Padres in the second round, who have been really, really good.
They've really turned it around.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into your Phillies. You want to do this one, Jason?
No, you can do it. I'll just chime in when I need to.
Okay. Record of 95-67. Pretty dang good. Home record of 54-27. I think that's the best home record out of anybody.
It is the best home record in the season.
The best. Biggest home field advantage this year. 41-40 on the road, though I don't like that, I'll be honest with you.
No, 49-41. A lot of their slump was on the road.
Yeah, 49-41 against teams over 500, and second half record of 33-33. Things were brutal there for a while.
Post All-Star break into August, and most of August was not pleasant to watch, and that was a lot of the all right, I'm just walking away from the TV for a while. But keep in mind, even with that slump, they were still one of the first teams, if not the first team, to hit 90 wins. They hit a lot of milestones before a lot of other teams did this year. And for a while, they were the best team in baseball. But Philadelphia bias, I think they got overlooked by a lot of people because it is the Phillies, and Philadelphia is still hated by a lot of sports writers.
So this, I think this is the thing with the Phillies is that they started off the season, their record or their schedule wasn't tough early, right? Like there was a lot of that, but at the same time, the argument was always you can only play who's in front of you, and you've got to win the games you're supposed to win if you're a good team.
And the Phils didn't do that for a long time. They would lose games to teams that they should have been beating. So then the argument,
but they were winning series though. You're not going to win every game, but if you win series, you're fine. And they were winning series against teams they were supposed to, and to me, that's like getting the job done. If you win 2 out of 3 against the White Sox, like the White Sox are still not going to lose every game, despite losing almost all of them. They're
almost
all of them, right? So when you drop a game to the White Sox, well, they were due because they're not going to lose 162. They were due eventually.
And the Marlins are always going to be a thorn in their side. I mean, that's unfortunately
every team has that team in the division. Every team has that team in the division. This year it was the Angels for the Mariners. And so I get that. They had a winning record against the Angels and make the playoffs. A whole lot of what ifs flying around Facebook these days. Jason. So
for the record, the Phils do have the season series over the Dodgers.
There you go. Unfortunately,
that's always a team the Phils show up against. They always show up well against the Dodgers.
Yeah, that is one thing the Phillies are really, really good at is showing up when they need to. I think Brig and I talked about this at one point. Is that the Phillies kind of felt like they were operating going through the season, like. Because before it was like the vibes. Last year, to me, it felt like the vibes with the Phillies. It's like, how could you not like this team? And this year, they were on a mission. So they were operating. It's like, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to take 2 out of 3 from this team, 2 out of 3 from this team. We're going to sweep this team, 2 out of 3 here, 3 out of 4 here, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, we have the Dodgers here. Let's turn it on and really play. It's going to be a big series. That's where the emotions are going to come out. Okay, done with the Dodgers. Let's go back. We're operating very level. That's the way it felt watching the Phillies from afar this year.
I mean, the vibes are still there. That clubhouse. Well,
and I get that because you still have all the same guys.
Minus Hoskins, but yeah.
Right.
But the vibes
in that
team are fantastic. Yeah. And I could talk about them all day, every day. So I don't want to turn this into a 20-minute diatribe. So please continue.
Well, that's why we had you on the Philly podcast. So, okay. So plus 113 run differential. They're either going to be playing the Brewers, who they're 4-2 against this year, which that's the one I want. I want them playing the Brewers so bad, playing against Reese. You're going to get October Reese Hoskins back in Philly. Please. I'm here for that all day.
Yeah, but here's my thing with Reese. Reese gets really cold for long stretches.
He does. But he came through for the Phillies in October a couple times.
Yes, he did. He did.
And that's what I want.
Reese Hoskins that I have seen more often than not. So you're ready to tear your hair out.
This is the thing. This is the argument, though. This is the thing you have to remember is that the guys are different in October. Like we used as Mariners fans, we always talked about September Jared Kelenic. September JK was a different guy than he was in April, May, June, July, and August. Because once it got to September, it's like the dude hit like 450 or something like that in September, the year the Mariners went to the playoffs. And today, he had a huge hit in game 1 of the doubleheader that extended a rally that ended up really making it a game for the Braves again. I think it was right before the Ozzie Albies double, like the bases clearing double for Ozzie Albies, that he beat out an infield dribbler to extend that inning. And so he is a different guy September and October than he is the rest of the year. And some guys just are. And I feel like Reese Hoskins is kind of one of those guys. Like, I know he doesn't come through in every single moment. And I know that he's not going to go 3 for 4 every single game, but you need a home run out of Reese Hoskins. There's a good chance you're going to get it.
Yeah, there's a good chance he'll deliver.
So that's what I'm talking about. That's the guy I want playing against Philly in Philly because he gets it and he can feel the moment. And so that's why I want the Brewers, because I want to see that as a neutral party.
It's the better matchup, to be fair.
It is. Yeah, most definitely. Some offensive stats, some statisticals for the Phillies in the second half. 255 team average, 741 OPS. That's good. 80 bombs. I like that number. 49 stolen bases. The Phillies don't steal a lot of bags?
They didn't this year. But you got to think they lost Turner for a while, who was a bag stealer. They lost him to a hamstring injury, and he was probably their biggest threat on the bases. They do have speed in guys like Stott, and I'm blanking on him now, and he's one of my favorite players on Marshy.
Yeah.
But they have not. Like, let me tell you, you were talking earlier about Cal Raleigh stealing bases. The fits I get into watching Kyle Schwarber trying to steal a base is just
choose.
out of my mind watching him trying to like steal a base or leg out a double. Like, just stay at first. Just stay at first. You don't need to try this. It's not your strength.
Is Bryce Harper done stealing bags?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. It's unfortunate.
I think it's and I don't think it's a speed thing. I think it is more to do with the extension of his elbow, and having to reach out on a headfirst slide into second.
That makes sense.
And that ties into, he basically says I hyperextended every time I swing and miss.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I don't believe he's 100% contrary to what they say.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And that is a big fear of mine.
Yeah. So one thing that's interesting about that, going headfirst into a base like that, the Mariners earlier this year told Julio Rodriguez, they said, when you steal second, go in feet first because we don't want you to hurt your shoulder or your hand, whatever, or elbow. But the problem he had is that he's so fast that he would go into second base feet first. He would pop off the bag every single time. He was caught stealing 5 times in a row because he popped off the bag.
Right. Because
there's like a give and take.
Him over.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like necessarily going over. It's just that he hit the base so hard that he would go up and he would disconnect from it. And because the shortstop or second baseman, whoever, kept their glove on him, he was out every time. And so there's like a give and take with it, I feel like. And it's really interesting because I feel like Harper is one of those guys who would slide so hard into a base that he would pop off of it too.
Yes. And he would, because that's how he plays.
Yeah. So interesting to see how the Phillies have evolved. And honestly, though, I like the way this team's put together. I'm not worried about this 33-33 second half record. 4-6 their last 10. Not worried about it at all. This team's built for the postseason.
I will say this. I have concerns, and I mean, you can get into their ERA. That's where my concerns are, because once you get past Wheeler, Nola, and Sanchez, and even Nola's a little shaky. Ranger Suarez was not the Ranger Suarez we've seen the last 2 seasons. And Taijuan Walker, when he was healthy, was terrible. And when he wasn't healthy, we were calling up guys for the minor leagues and eating day 5. So, I mean, we're basically working on a 3-man rotation in the playoffs, and that,
which is normal.
It's normal, but it's not always ideal though either.
Right. Yeah. 4.49 team ERA, 2.9 walks per 9. Not great, but not. I mean, we've seen worse, right? The one that's concerning is the 2.63 batting average against. That you're giving up a lot of base runners, giving up a lot of hits with that.
But that's that day 5 we're eating.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, that you're relying so much on your defense. And I don't know. I feel like the Phillies have a good infield, strong up the middle, strong center field, but I am not entirely sold defensively on the corners in the outfield.
I think that's unfair to Castellanos, who, I mean, last year he didn't make a single error in right field and probably should have gotten a Gold Glove and didn't.
But if you're not covering as much ground, you're not going to make an effort. You're not going to be able to make those plays either, as guys who can cover more ground.
But I think that also ties into how well the infield is, that you'll see Bryce or a Bryson Stott charge out into the outfield to get a play that Castellanos probably could get too. I like Marsh a lot, and Marsh has really great speed, but I do have concerns with him in left field. And then there's also Austin Hayes, who hasn't been really healthy a lot since they traded for him, and he does play left field the days that Marsh doesn't. So left field's a little shaky, but I have faith in right field.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the thing is I really like Nick Castellanos, and I appreciate that he did not make an error last year, right? But again, for me, it's the range factor. There are guys in the league who play right field who have a lot more speed, who are going to make more plays and have fewer balls drop in right field than what are going to happen when he's out there. That's my big concern with Nick Castellanos. Not so much that his glove or his arm. I'm not worried about those at all. It's the range.
I'm more concerned about his bat.
It's streaky.
He was.
I don't want to say you want something to happen, but you need something to happen to get him going, right?
Yes.
Needs to be some news for Nick Castellanos to start hitting homers. All right, let's get into the rest of the National League. We're getting long. Here we go. Okay, so the National League, we've got the Brewers are your 3 seed, 93-69. Record did not see that coming. Home record of 47-34, road record of 46-35, 54-41 against teams over 500. This is a really good team. Second half record of 38.
It is a very good team.
Did not see this coming at all. Not at all. Pat Murphy has done an outstanding job with this team. And I could not be happier. 5-1 against the Mets is who they're going to be playing in this first round. I like the way the things stack up for them. So here are some offensive numbers. This 239 team batting average since the break, 407 slug, 722 team OPS, 78 home runs. Dead average though. Like their WRC plus is 100, which blows my mind. But you know that calculating that number, by the way, is such a mystery and so obscure that nobody's ever going to be able to do it manually. So there's that. And then they walk quite a bit, 9.5%, but they also strike out a lot, 24.9% strikeout rate. They steal bags though, 84 stolen bases in the second half. But this is one of the things that's really kept them together in the second half is their pitching staff. 342 team ERA, 228 batting average against, 21 saves and 8 blown saves is all. I like the way this team looks coming into the postseason.
Yeah, they look good, and they're primed. They are primed and ready.
Yeah, they've talked about a team that's been operating all year long. The Brewers have been operating, just surgical.
And going back to Rhys Hoskins, who's a Brewer, one of the knocks against Rhys is that he walked a lot, which I hate that being a knock because that is a guaranteed potential run to be scored. And it shows a lot of plate discipline to just not swing at everything. Mm-hmm. So them having a high walk rate, I mean, that's a great thing.
It is. I like walks. Every time a guy walks, like, yes, I love it. Like, I don't understand that knock because you're getting on base and you're giving your team a chance to score. So
I concur. Bizarre. I agree with that a whole 100%.
That is absolutely bizarre. Let's look at the Mets real quick. We don't have all the numbers on the Mets just because stuff is not updated for them because their season ended today. Again, previous recording Monday night. But they ended the season with an 89-73 record, 46-35 at home, 43-38 on the road, 47-46 against teams over 500. A second half record of 40-27. The grimace is magic. Jason. Like to me, that's what this all comes down to. This is the grimace's magic. Do you think it'll run out in the playoffs?
I think this is a very strong Mets team that really turned it on in the second half compared to where they were when the season began. And look, the Mets were, for lack of a better term, a crap show for the last 2 seasons. And you know, I'm not a Mets guy, but I know a lot of Mets fans, and I'm happy for them that this team has shown up as it did in the second half.
Especially given the conversation that Max Scherzer had with, was it their GM last year? And they said they're going to take a step back.
Yeah.
So much for that. This team's better than they were last year.
But they made a right decision to kind of peel away some of those players.
Yeah. I agree. That was a good decision for them to make. Absolutely. So they're going to be playing, like we said, they're going to be playing the Brewers. They're 1-5 against the Brewers this year. I don't know when they played, but I feel like that matters because the Mets, like if they played early, it's a completely different team. Completely
right.
different team. I don't know. I think it'll be a fun series, though. I do think that the Brewers are going to win that one. Okay, let's talk about the Padres for just a minute. Love the Padres. Jason, I love this Padres team so much. 93-69 record, 46-36 at home, 48-33 on the road, 50-44 against teams over 500, 43-20 in the second half. World beaters.
Yeah.
They will be playing the Atlanta Braves, who they're 4-3 against. The Padres finished the season 7-3, despite not really needing to finish that strong. They did it anyway. So their offense is crazy to look at their numbers. 267 team average. I don't have their team OPS because I did math wrong, but they slugged 433, 439 as a team. It's like 400. That's not right. But I do think it's safe to say, though, that OPS is up above 750 because I don't have their on base percentage handy, but a 439 team slugging percentage with that team easily up above 750, if not knocking on the door of 800. 81 home runs as a team in the second half, 51 stolen bases. Not a lot. I would expect more out of the speed on that team because they're all a bunch of shortstops. They can play. They're athletes. Let them steal some bases. True. 117 WRC plus, 7.6% walk rate. But here's the really crazy number: 17.2% strikeout rate. That's because they have one guy on that roster who never strikes out, ever. It's really helping that number. But you've got to work to get them out. That's how you win games. Put the ball in play and good things happen.
What a contrast compared to how last season ended, where it was almost a joke that they had to take a loan out to make payroll at the end of the season.
Right.
I mean, what a positive way this season has turned around from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really cool to see that. I can't think of their GM's name right off the top of my head, but he obviously knows what he's doing. Like, he went out and got Juan Soto because that's who everybody wanted. And of course, Juan Soto is going to add to your team. He's going to make you better. So why not get him? Unfortunately, he didn't know that Juan Soto was going to be a shell of himself in San Diego, which is still better than probably 80% of the league, but not the contribution you're expecting from Juan Soto. So what do? You deal him, you get back a bunch of pieces, and then you have money, and you sign Jurickson Profar for $1 million, and he goes off and is an all-star. What the heck? Who saw that coming? But I don't know, man. I think that this team is just put together really well. Apparently, it does work to just have a bunch of athletes on your team playing every position and a bunch of guys who can just put the bat on the ball because they're so good at it. So good at it. Were you able to find his name? I saw you typing.
It is AJ Preller.
Preller. I knew it. It started with P. It's on the tip of my tongue. So on top of having a really good offense, team that just, like I said, puts the ball in play, their pitching's not bad either. 3.38 team ERA. They're only giving up 0.89 home runs per 9, striking out 9.31 per 9, and only walking 2.83 per 9. 221 batting average allowed, 20 saves, 9 blown saves in the second half. Then that's without your reigning Cy Young winner.
Right.
Blake Snell. Granted, you replace him with Dylan Cease, but still. Padres are scary. I'd be scared if I was in the National League with this team. Let's move on to the Braves. This is our last team, and then we'll get into predictions just real quick. Okay, the Braves finished the season 89-73, 46-35 at home, 43-38 on the road, 52-41 against teams over 500, a 36-31 second half record, plus 97 run differential. That is updated, by the way, with today's games. They're 3-4 against the Padres this year. Honestly, I kept waiting for things to just fall apart for the Braves. Kept waiting for the wheels to come off because they've had to deal with so many injuries. But it's going to
kill me to say this. It's going to absolutely kill me to say this. They overachieved based on the way the injury bug just hit them this year.
Yes. I I did not like. I think I said it every single week. Okay, like now's the time. This is when it's going to happen. This is when it's going to happen. And it just never did. It never happened, and I can't believe it never happened. Their expected win-loss record though was still 92-70 this year, and they underperformed that. That's according to Major League Baseball MLB.com. So I'm shocked that the number is that high when they had to deal with pitching injuries. Ronald Acuna Jr. injury. Sean Murphy was out for several stints this year. So
who's a very good catcher, one catcher I enjoy watching.
Yeah. I remember when he was in Oakland and there was talks about him trading. I was like, oh man, whoever gets him is getting a stud. He's so good. So we won't get into predictions too much until like probably a minute from now. But I'm gonna say I do think this is when the Braves luck runs out. Is this stretch right here. Okay. Let's do it. Let's get into predictions. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. Let's start, as we always do, in the American League. Let's start with your 3-6 matchup. Houston and Detroit. Who do you have winning and in how many games? Best of 3 series.
Detroit in 2.
Detroit in 2.
They have the hot hand right now.
They do have a hot hand. I'm going to go Houston in 3. Okay, so 4-5 matchup. Orioles at Royals. Who do you have?
O's in 3.
The O's in 3? I'm going to say O's in 2. And let's go over to the National League. We have, let's go back to 3-6 first. Brewers and Mets. Who do you have?
Brewers in 2.
That's what I have. Brewers in 2. So San Diego and Atlanta. Who do you have?
I'm going to say San Diego in 3 because the Braves are dangerous despite the injury bug that they had all season.
I'm going to go San Diego in 2. Playing in San Diego. I like it. I like the home field there.
And it'd be nice to have the Phils not blamed for the Braves choking. So
you don't want to hold that over Braves fans forever. Just like, you can't beat the Phillies ever.
It's always the Phils' fault. Whenever something happens to the Braves, somehow it's the Phils' fault. And it's the fans' fault. It's our culture, how we treat players. It's always ties back to us.
So I do actually have Briggs' wild card prediction. So he has Houston over Detroit in 3. Kansas City over Baltimore in 3. And then he has Milwaukee over New York in 2 and San Diego over Atlanta in 2. So he agrees with us on the winners in the National League, agrees with me in the winners, spot on in the National League, but he is against. Well, I guess no, he chose the Orioles. Okay. Anyway, all right. So because Briggs going to do the rest of his predictions on Thursday night when we go live, but you and I will go ahead and go the rest of the way through. Okay. So on to the next round. Who do you have playing Cleveland? Do you have Detroit?
Tigers.
Who do you have winning that series?
Cleveland.
Cleveland in how many? This is a best of 5.
5. Yeah. I'll do Cleveland in 4.
Cleveland in 4. Okay. I'm going to
I think the Tigers can steal one.
Yeah. I'm going to go Houston in 5. I wish that we had gotten a complete series out of these two teams to end the season. But I do like that we're getting them again. I shouldn't say we are. There's a chance. I'm saying there's a chance. But I'm going to go Houston in 5. I think it's going to be a really good series. Okay. So who you had? Baltimore, right? In the first round?
Yeah.
Up against the Yankees. Who do you have?
This is a tough one because my heart says O's in 5, but I think it's going to be the Yankees in 5. I think it's going to be a hard-fought series. It's going to be a classic series, but I think it's going to ultimately go to the Yanks.
I'm going Baltimore in 4. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
I mean, that's my heart right there is I think the O's, but my brain is saying the Yankees.
Okay. So over to the National League, we have Milwaukee against Philly.
Phil's in 4.
Phil's in 4. I'm going to go Phil's in 5. is what I'm going to go with there. And then LA, the Dodgers against the Padres. LA. Best tacos in LA. Who you got?
I'm going to take San Diego in 5 because the Dodgers have not performed well in the playoffs the last few years.
Especially, you look at Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. Oh, man.
Frederick.
Not good. They were like 0 for 8 their last playoff game combined. So, I'm going San Diego because that pitching is going to catch up with the Dodgers, and I think the San Diego is going to take them. However, I do think that we're going to see an outstanding performance out of Shohei Ohtani during those 5 games because this is who he is. It's what he's prepped for his entire life. All right, your ALCS. Who do you have in your ALCS? You have
Cleveland
and New York. Okay, who do you have?
I'm going to go the Yankees.
Yeah. And how many is the best of 7?
I'm going to say the Yankees in 7. I think it's going to go all games.
Okay. I have Houston against Baltimore, and I'm going to go with Houston in 6. As much as I hate to say it, they are going to get some of that magic back that they found partway through the second half of the season, and it's going to be a problem. So, and I hate to say it, but I think that's what's going to happen. Okay, National League, you're an NLCS best of 7 series. The Phillies and the Phillies and the Padres, you said?
Yes.
Okay, who you got? Making a homer pick?
Of course I am. I mean, unless the Phils are unhealthy. I mean,
well, this is all fantasy saying that everybody's healthy, everybody's rested, right?
Phils in 7 because I know the Phils on the road in the playoffs is rough. They're gonna deliver at home. They go to San Diego. They'll probably take 1, lose 2. I think it's gonna be a really hard fought NLCS, but the Phils will come out the victors.
So I'm actually going to go San Diego in 7 because it's going to be a really hard fought series, and I think San Diego is going to steal one of those first 2 at home in Philly, and then from there it's just going to be chalk the rest of the way, right? So Padres in 7. Okay, your World Series. You have the Yankees and the Phillies.
In a rematch from 2009, Phils in 7. I think this is the Phils year. They're primed for it. They've been playing for this all season. This is their year.
The Phils in 7. I'm going to go with the Padres in 6 over the Astros. That's what I'm going to take. And mostly because I can't handle it if the Astros win another World Series. Oh, man. That'd be so brutal. And that would be 3 years in a row a team out of the American League West has won the World Series, which, it's like, okay, if you're going to lose the division, lose it to the world champion, right? But at the same time, though, like, I don't want to hear every single time the Mariners go to play the Astros next year, world champion, world Astros, right? Because I hated hearing that with the Rangers this year. It's like, but the Rangers stink. I don't care if they're defending champs.
They were terrible.
They were so bad.
That is lightning in a bottle right there.
So, anyway, all right, Jason, it's getting late. I'm going to let you go, so we're going to wrap up. Okay. Thanks for joining us. Baseball family, let us know what you think about our World Series picks. We call all of our predictions meaningless predictions around here because they don't mean anything. We just do it for fun, but we will check back on them as we go through the postseason and see how we're doing. And then again, with our meaningless predictions after the season, we're going to revisit those from the beginning of the year. We do it every year, and it's fun. But anyway, thanks again for joining us. If you want to support, last thing I have before we go, if you want to support the show directly, head over to patreon.com, search Baseball Together, or hit the link down in the description to head over to Patreon. And we have 5 tiers of support. Again, $1, $5, $10, $15, and a whopping comically large $500 a month of support. Brig will do everything I have promised on that list. I promise you that. But one thing everybody gets is the bullpen cut and also a sticker just for fun. The bullpen cut is the unedited, uncut version of the show from the moment we hit record until we hit stop. You get some extra fun stuff before, after, and in between everything as well. Like the time that I caught Jason off guard with the playoff primer sounder, and that was hilarious. But anyway, baseball family, thank you so much again for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review everywhere that you can, and we will catch you next week.